Carol stood on the balcony of her lavish home, gazing out at the sprawling gardens that shimmered under the morning sun. The air was filled with the scent of blooming roses and freshly cut grass. It was a perfect picture of the life she had built with her first husband, James. James, a man of refined tastes and deep pockets, had created a world of luxury for them. Carol often found herself lost in the opulence of it all, the grand parties, the exotic holidays, and the endless stream of admirers. Yet, beneath the surface of this glittering existence, there was a subtle undercurrent of discontent. "Another beautiful day, isn't it, my love?" James's voice broke through her reverie as he joined her on the balcony, his presence as comforting as it was familiar. "It is," Carol replied, her voice tinged with a wistfulness that she couldn't quite hide. James, always attentive, picked up on her tone. "You seem distant this morning. Is everything all right?" he asked, his brow creasing with concern. Carol smiled softly, turning to face him. "I was just thinking about how lucky we are, but sometimes I wonder if there's more to life than this luxury." James chuckled, wrapping an arm around her. "What more could one possibly want? We have love, wealth, and each other." Carol leaned into his embrace, knowing he was right, yet feeling an unexplainable emptiness. "I guess I'm just being silly," she murmured. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of their children, Michael and Emily, racing through the house, their laughter echoing through the halls. Carol's face lit up at the sound. "Let's go have breakfast with the kids. They always know how to brighten." As they descended the grand staircase, Carol glanced back at the world she had created with James. It was a world filled with every conceivable luxury, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. At breakfast, the family chatted amiably. James shared stories about his latest business ventures, Michael boasted about his success on the soccer field, and Emily excitedly talked about her plans for her upcoming birthday party. "Moss, are you going to bake my favourite chocolate cake for my birthday?" Emily asked with a hopeful glimmer in her eyes. "Of course, my darling," Carol replied, her heart swelling with love for her daughter. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As they continued their breakfast, Carol's mind drifted. She loved her family deeply, but the yearning for something more, something different, remained. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she knew that her life, as perfect as it seemed, was waiting for something, or someone, to awaken it from its golden slumber. Carol's life took an unexpected turn the day she met Kenneth. It was during one of James's lavish garden parties. The lawn was dotted with elegantly dressed guests, sipping champagne and reveling in the afternoon sun. Carol, though surrounded by acquaintances, felt a sense of isolation amidst the crowd. That's when she noticed him, Kenneth, standing near the fountain, a stark contrast to the other guests. He was younger, his attire less formal, his smile more genuine. There was a certain rugged charm about him that immediately caught Carol's attention. As if sensing her gaze, Kenneth looked up and their eyes met. There was an unspoken understanding, a connection that Carol had never felt before. She found herself drawn to him, as if by some magnetic force. "Who's that?" Carol whispered to a friend standing nearby. "That's Kenneth, the new artist everyone's been talking about. Quite the charmer, I hear," her friend replied with a knowing smile. Intrigued, Carol found herself walking towards Kenneth. There was an undeniable pull, a curiosity that she couldn't resist. "Hi, I don't think we've met." "I'm Carol," she said, extending her hand. Kenneth took her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. "Kenneth, it's a pleasure. Your garden is beautiful, but not nearly as much as you." Carol blushed at the compliment. "Thank you, Kenneth. Are you enjoying the party?" "I am now," he replied with a twinkle in his eye. "To be honest, I usually find these gatherings a bit stifling, but there's something different about this one." Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Kenneth spoke of his travels, his art, and his adventures. Carol listened, captivated by his stories, his passion for life. He was like a breath of fresh air in her structured, pretty... As the afternoon waned, Carol realized she had spent hours talking to Kenneth, oblivious to the party around them. "Would you like to take a walk around the garden?" Kenneth asked, his eyes searching hers. Carol hesitated for a moment, aware of the implications. But the excitement of the unknown, the thrill of this new connection, pushed her doubts. "Yes, I'd like that," she replied, her heart racing. As they walked, the conversation turned more personal. Carol found herself opening up about her life, her family, and her latent dissatisfaction. "You seem to have everything, Carol. Why do I sense a but in your tone?" Kenneth asked. Carol sighed, a mixture of relief and apprehension in her voice. "I do have everything, but sometimes I feel like I'm missing something. Something real, something raw." Kenneth stopped, turning to face her. "Sometimes it takes a whirlwind to awaken us from our slumber," he said softly. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, Carol felt a surge of emotions she hadn't experienced in years. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. As the evening drew to a close and they said their goodbyes, Carol knew her life would never be the same. Kenneth had ignited something within her, a longing for a life less ordinary. The safety and comfort her world with James suddenly felt constricting, a gilded cage she hadn't noticed before. Lying in bed that night next to a sleeping James, Carol's mind replayed her encounter with Kenneth. She was at a crossroads, torn between the life she knew and the life she yearned for. The whirlwind named Kenneth had swept into her world, and nothing would ever be the same again. Carol's decision to be with Kenneth had been both swift and tumultuous. Leaving the comfort and predictability of her life with James had not been easy, and the fallout with her family was even harder. But the allure of a new beginning with Kenneth was irresistible. Their life together was a stark contrast to Carol's previous existence. They moved into a cozy, yet stylish apartment in the city. Gone were the days of luxury cars and opulent parties. Instead, their lives were filled with art exhibitions, impromptu road trips, and late-night conversations about dreams and philosophy. Kenneth's passion for life was infectious, but his moods were unpredictable. He could be tender and attentive one moment and cold and distant the next. Carol often found herself walking on eggshells, unsure which version of Kenneth she would encounter. One evening, as they sat on their small balcony overlooking the city lights, Carol decided to address the elephant in the room. "Kenneth, I need to talk to you about something," she began, her voice tentative. Kenneth looked up from his book, his expression guarded. "What's on your mind?" "It's about us, about how things have been lately. I feel like you're somewhere else. Like I can't reach you," Carol said, her heart racing with a mix of fear and hope. Kenneth sighed, closing his book and turning to face her. "Carol, you know I love you, but I'm not like your ex-husband. I can't give you the stability or the predictability you're used to." Carol reached for his hand. "It's not about stability or luxury, Kenneth. It's about us, about feeling connected. I left my old life for something real, something deeper. But sometimes I feel more alone than..." Kenneth's expression softened. "I'm sorry, Carol. I never meant to make you feel alone. My art, my work, it consumes me. It's just..." Carol nodded, understanding yet still longing for more. "I know, and I love your passion. It's one of the things that drew me to you. But can't we find a balance? Can't we make our relationship as much a work of art as your paintings?" Kenneth pulled her into his arms, his embrace warm and reassuring. "We can try, Carol. I promise we can try." Their life continued in this pattern, moments of intense connection followed by periods of distance. Carol cherished the adventures and the freedom, but she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that hung over them. One day, as Carol walked through their apartment, she noticed Kenneth's phone light up with a message. Curiosity got the better of her, and she glanced at the screen. The message was from a woman's name she didn't recognize, and its flirtatious tone sent a jolt of anxiety through her. "Kenneth, who is Anna?" Carol asked later that evening, trying to keep her voice steady. Kenneth looked up, his face betraying a flicker of surprise. "Oh, Anna? She's just a client, someone interested in buying one of my paintings." Carol wanted to believe him, but doubt had planted its seed. She lay awake that night, wondering if the life she had chosen with Kenneth was just another illusion, a turbulent paradise that promised much but delivered little. Despite the doubts and the occasional stormy weather, Carol couldn't deny the love she felt for Kenneth. It was a love that was complex and challenging, but also deeply passionate and alive. She just hoped that their turbulent paradise could find some calm, some stability, before it was too late. The unraveling of Carol and Kenneth's relationship began subtly, like a small tear in a beautiful tapestry that gradually widens. Carol's discovery of Kenneth's affair was a shattering blow, one that left her questioning not just their relationship, but her own self-worth. It started one crisp autumn evening when Kenneth was unusually late coming home. Carol tried to dismiss her concerns, telling herself he was just caught up at his studio. But as hours ticked by, her anxiety grew. Finally, when he arrived looking disheveled and distracted, Carol's worry turned to suspicion. "Kenneth, where have you been?" "I was worried," she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Kenneth's response was vague, just lost track of time at the studio. "You know how it is when I'm..." Carol wanted to believe him, but the nagging doubt lingered. In the days that followed, she noticed more signs: secretive phone calls, sudden plans, and a growing emotional distance that felt like a chasm between them. One evening, while Kenneth was in the shower, Carol's resolve crumbled, and she decided to check his phone. What she found was a series of messages to someone named Anna E. Messages that were unmistakably intimate. Confronting Kenneth was one of the hardest things Carol had ever done. She waited for him in the living room, his phone in her trembling hands. "Kenneth, we need to talk," she said as he walked in. Kenneth, seeing his phone in her hand, knew the moment of reckoning had arrived. "Carol, Who is Anna, Kenneth?" Carol cut him off, her voice a mix of hurt and anger. "And don't lie to me. Not now." Kenneth sighed, a look of resignation crossing his face. "Anna is someone I met a few months ago. She's more than just a client. I didn't mean for it to happen, Carol. It just did." Carol felt as if the ground had opened beneath her. "Did you ever love me, Kenneth? Or was I just another adventure for you?" "Of course I loved you. I still do. But with Anna, it's different. It's not just about passion. It's something deeper," Kenneth confessed, his words cutting through her heart. Tears streamed down Carol's face as the painful truth sunk in. The man she had given up everything for, the man she thought was her soulmate, loved another woman more deeply than he had ever loved her. In the days that followed, Carol grappled with her emotions. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but so was the realization that their relationship had been built on a foundation of sand. She thought about confronting Anna, but what would that achieve? The damage was done. The trust that had once bonded her and Kenneth was shattered beyond repair. Carol was left to pick up the pieces of her broken heart, wondering how she had been so blind. The unraveling of her relationship with Kenneth was not just about his infidelity. It was about the unraveling of her own identity. Who was she without Kenneth? What did she want from life now that the future they had planned together was known? The unraveling was painful, but it was also a wake-up call. Carol realized she needed to find herself again, to rediscover the woman she was before Kenneth, before James, before the whirlwind of romance had swept her away. It was time to face the world alone, to rebuild her life, one step at a time. In the aftermath of her relationship with Kenneth, Carol found herself in a state of introspection. The house they once shared now felt like a mausoleum of memories, each room echoing with the ghosts of their... She spent her days wandering through the empty spaces, her mind a whirlpool of emotions: anger, betrayal, sorrow, and, surprisingly, One evening, as Carol sat in the living room surrounded by the fading light of day, her daughter Emily visited. Emily had always been Carol's rock, even when she disagreed with her mother's decisions. "Mum, how are you holding up?" Emily asked, her eyes full of concern as she sat down beside her. Carol sighed, the weight of her heartache evident in her voice. "I'm surviving, darling, but it's hard. I feel like I've lost a part of myself." Emily took her mother's hand, squeezing it gently. "You haven't lost yourself, Mom. You just lost your way for a bit. But you're strong, and you'll find your way back." Carol smiled weakly. "I hope so. It's just that everything reminds me of him, of us. I feel so foolish, Emily. I left your father for a dream that turned into a nightmare." Emily's expression softened. "Mom, you followed your heart. That's not foolish, that's brave. Sometimes things don't work out the way we hope, but that doesn't mean we should stop trying." Carol nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I just wish I knew what to do now." Start by finding the things you love, the things that make you happy. Rediscover yourself, Mum. You're more than just someone's wife or partner. Carol took a deep breath, feeling a spark of determination ignite within her. "You're right. I need to find myself again. I've been someone's wife, someone's mother for so long, I've forgotten who Carol is." In the following weeks, Carol embarked on a journey of self-discovery. She reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies she had abandoned, and even started attending a local book club. Slowly, she began to feel a sense of purpose returning to her life. One day, while attending an art exhibit, Carol ran into an old friend, Linda. They had lost touch over the years, and their chance encounter felt like a sign. "Linda, it's so good to see you," Carol exclaimed, genuinely happy. "Carol, wow, it's been ages. How have you been?" Linda asked, her eyes scanning Carol's face. Carol hesitated, then decided to be honest. "It's been a rough patch, but I'm getting there. Rediscovering life, you could say." Linda nodded understandingly. Sometimes the hardest trials bring the greatest growth. "If you ever need a friend to talk to, I'm here." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and Carol felt a sense of camaraderie she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was refreshing to talk to someone who understood, who didn't judge. As Carol lay in bed that night, she realized that her reflection period was not just about understanding her past, but also about shaping her future. She may have stumbled, may have fallen, but she was far from broken. In the mirror of her life, a new Carol was emerging, one who was stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next. The reflection in the mirror was no longer a woman defined by her relationships, but a woman defined by her resilience and her newfound sense of self. Months had passed since Carol began her journey of self-discovery. She was slowly rebuilding her life, piece by piece, finding joy in small things and learning to appreciate her own company. Yet, there were moments, often in the quiet of the night, when the echoes of her heart reminded her of what she had lost, what could have been. During one such evening, while sipping tea and gazing at the stars from her balcony, Carol's son Michael paid her a surprise visit. "Hey, Mum, thought I'd drop by." "How are you doing?" Michael asked, his voice filled with concern as he joined her outside. Carol smiled, her heart warming at the sight of her son. "I'm doing well, Michael. It's good to see you." Michael looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I can see you're doing better. But are you happy, Mom?" Carol pondered his question, her eyes reflecting the starry sky. "I'm getting there. Happiness isn't a destination, Michael. It's a journey, and I'm on that." Michael nodded, sitting beside her. "I'm glad to hear that. But do you ever regret leaving Dad for Kenneth?" Carol sighed, a tinge of sadness in her voice. "Regret is a complex thing. I regret the pain I caused, but I don't regret following my heart. Both your father and Kenneth were important chapters in my life. They taught me a lot about love and about... I guess life is all about learning, isn't it? Michael mused. It is, Carol agreed. And one of the hardest lessons is letting go. Letting go of the past, of what we thought our life would be, and embracing what it is. They sat in silence for a while, the night wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. After a pause, Michael spoke up again. What about now, Mom? Are you open to love again? Carol chuckled softly. Love is always a possibility, but I'm not in a hurry. Right now, I'm focused on loving myself, on being comfortable in my own skin. That's the best approach, Mom. I'm proud of you, Michael said, his voice filled with admiration. Carol reached out, squeezing his hand. Thank you, Michael. Your support means the world to me. The night deepened, and as Michael left, Carol felt a sense of contentment wash over her. The echoes of her heart, once filled with regret and sorrow, were now humming a different tune, one of hope, strength, and the promise of new beginnings. In the weeks that followed, Carol continued her journey of self-exploration. She started writing, pouring her experiences and lessons into a memoir. Writing became therapeutic, a way to process her past and envision her future. One day, while attending a local writer's workshop, she met David, a fellow writer. He was charming, kind, and had a way with words that captivated her. They connected over their shared love for literature and life's complexities. Your story is inspiring, Carol, David said, one day as they shared coffee after the workshop. Thank you, David. It's been quite a journey, but I believe the best stories are the ones that are lived with authenticity. Carol replied, her eyes shining with a newfound zest for life. David smiled, a look of admiration in his eyes. And I can't wait to read the next chapter of your story. Carol blushed, feeling a flutter in her heart that she hadn't felt in a long time. Perhaps, she thought, life still had surprises in store for her. Perhaps the echoes of her heart were leading her to a new chapter, one filled with the possibility of love, but this time on her own terms. As Carol lay in bed that night, she realized that the echoes of her heart were not just remnants of her past, but also whispers of her future. She was ready to listen to them, to follow where they might lead. Her heart, once bruised, was now open, not just to love, but to life in all its unpredictable beauty. Years had passed since Carol embarked on her journey of self-discovery. The seasons of her life had turned, bringing with them the wisdom and serenity of age. Now, in the autumn of her years, Carol found herself in a place of peaceful reflection, surrounded by the love of her family and the warmth of new beginnings. One crisp autumn afternoon, Carol sat in her garden, now a riot of golden and crimson leaves. Her granddaughter, Lily, played nearby, her laughter a sweet melody that filled the air. Carol was joined by her daughter, Emily, who had grown into a strong and compassionate woman. "Mom, you seem so at peace these days," Emily observed, taking a seat next to her. Carol smiled, watching Lily chase a butterfly. "I am, Emily. It took me a long time to get here, but I've learned so much along the way." Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting the same strength Carol had always admired. "You've been through so much, Mum, but you've always emerged stronger. I've always admired that about you." Carol reached out, gently touching Emily's hand. "Life is a beautiful, complex tapestry, my dear. Every thread, every colour, even the darker ones, are essential. They've made me who I am today." As they talked, the topic of love and relationships surfaced. "Emily," curious, asked, "do you ever think about love now, Mom? About finding someone again?" Carol pondered the question, her gaze drifting to the golden leaves around them. "Love is always a part of life, no matter the age, but I've learned to let it find me rather than chasing it. My heart is open, but I'm content with whatever life brings my way." Just then, David, the man Carol had met at the writer's workshop years ago and who had since become a dear friend, walked into the garden. His arrival was always a source of joy for Carol. "Hello, ladies. I hope I'm not interrupting," David said with his usual warm smile. "Not at all, David. We were just talking about life and love," Carol replied, her eyes lighting up. David chuckled. "Two very profound topics. And speaking of love, I've just finished reading your memoir, Carol. It's a remarkable story of resilience and hope." Carol blushed slightly, pleased. "Thank you, David. It's been a journey indeed." As they chatted, the conversation flowed effortlessly. David had a way of making Carol feel both at ease and alive, a feeling she cherished. Emily watched her mother with a knowing smile. "I'll leave you two to it," she said, standing up. "Come on, Lily, let's give Grandma some time with her." After Emily and Lily left, David turned to Carol. "You know, Carol, every time I'm with you, I'm reminded of how wonderful life can be, even with its ups and downs." Carol smiled, a soft warmth spreading through her heart. "Life is indeed wonderful, David, and it's even more so with good company." As they sat together, talking and laughing, Carol felt a sense of completeness. The autumn of her life, once feared, had bloomed into a season of contentment and unexpected joys. The love she had once yearned for had transformed into something deeper. A love for life, for herself, and for the moments that made each day special. The epilogue of Carol's story was not one of endings, but of continued growth and blooming. Her journey had taught her that every season of life had its beauty, its lessons, and its love. And in this autumn bloom, Carol found not just peace, but a quiet, enduring happiness that came from within, colouring her world with the rich, golden hues of fulfillment and grace.